Okay. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the House of Holocrons podcast, episode number 47. In this one, we will be going over the droids, just as I put in the title section. Talking about some of our favorites, some of our least favorites, and then also talking a big subject on autonomy and sentience. I know in the world today, that's become a huge topic due to all the AI stuff that is becoming more and more prevalent throughout the media industries and like tech industries. So more or less, it's going to eventually lead down the road where we might actually have droids in this very world that we live in. And I feel like that's definitely what we're going to start going towards. I would almost feel like with like workforce and stuff. Once Boston Dynamics makes like a far cheaper version of that robot, I feel like forklifts. Why would you need a forklift? You can just have something that can just do it without an operator.
Well, speaking of somebody who's worked in the industry and actually worked on industrial robots, my experience with them is they had robots that would package them onto pallets. So the robots would grab them, sit them down, and arrange in the order that they needed to be for the pallet, and then it would wrap it up in saran wrap. But it wasn't like, when I say robot, it was like a large arm with different things to grab. And it wasn't like an actual separable machine. It was like a stationary, but it was all autonomous. So it does fall in the category of robots. It's more of a the thing is with robots, when we do see them, they are in a more of a practical sense. Because for a robot, the human figures all like R2, not necessarily the best fitting or best design. And then you get to forklifts. Believe it or not, when I was leaving that company, I was helping them install a system for automated forklift systems. The company, one of the easiest ways to get hired there is they would outsource a company, and they would get really low skilled labor, and they would get on the forklifts, and they would carry these giant bundles of paper, massive, that are several tons. And they would carry them through the warehouse, and they would often crash into things because it was so huge you'd have to drive around.
Yeah.
And so basically what it was, the coded like a lane system that the cameras could identify, kind of like the self-driving cars.
Yeah.
And they would just, they were forklifts that could carry the bundles from here to there, wherever they needed to go. The automated forklifts is actually something that's already being done.
Right. And like with Boston Dynamics, it showed us the reason that we would probably, for the most part, again, like you said, stray away from the droid figure that we all know and love. Like, I love C-3PO, I love R2-D2, but R2-D2 looks the best. Treads is a really good one for a lot of like sturdiness, but like, yeah, the Boston Dynamics robot, you walk up to the side of it, you can just, push over. But it's protocol droid, so that makes more sense. For C-3PO, it's always made sense to look more human when you are a translator, when you are a aid to somebody.
Yeah,
but
it's a human interface droid. So it's not just a translator. It's basically a butler. Droid, just a human assistant, essentially.
I almost feel like that's almost what AI that we're making today is kind of becoming. It has a human face. It has our style of voice to make us feel more comfortable with it, answering all of our questions and scheduling our like calendar and stuff.
And so, with the AI, and it goes into play a lot with the Star Wars universe. That one is a little more fantasy, and they have more self-reliance. And our version of AI, all it is it's a giant math problem, essentially, that pulls derivatives from the internet. You put in a question that it's not familiar with, it'll draw that question based on popular searches using Google or whatever it can.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually self-think. It literally is just one big fancy math problem. So, and it's not like the sci-fi AI that we
all knowing, always thinking. Yeah, and I feel like that's one of the big things with
think on its own.
Right, that's one of the things that separates what we've created and what we are striving forward at the moment versus the galaxy far, far away, and the fact that those droids are not only taught, they are also like they can reprogram if need to in a moment. Like they have so much autonomy over their own programming That's why they have to be wiped. That's why Chopper and R2, they get a little lippy since they haven't been wiped for so many years. They've continuously gained this sense of autonomy, this sense of self, and
it's just they've developed so much information over
yeah,
time, and it's a similar scenario, just on an extreme level. Though the difference is they can self decide for themselves, where the AI programs can't.
yeah,
If you leave these AI programs by themselves, they're not going to generate their own thing unless you put in an algorithm for them to do so. Um, but they don't actually do that on their own,
yeah,
which a lot of Star Wars droids kind of go that way. And then we kind of got a little extreme with it in some of the children's program when they did the Clone Wars and stuff, where they actually gave like the BT units. If you look at episode 1,
mm-hmm.
they have no emotions. If you get to episode 2 and the Clone Wars, they have phrases and they get emotions.
They're very dumb. The B1 battle droids are just like, at first it was just like Roger, Roger, and I think the class of it came from, what was it, when Qui-Gon Jinn was like, we're taking these prisoners to Coruscant, and they go, take them away.
But the funny thing is, it's like the whole stormtrooper shtick.
Yeah.
It's to kind of like put a little comedy
Mm-hmm.
on mass murder, because the BT droids were mass murder machines.
Yeah, and I mean that's the way that the Separatists did it. Yeah, they just threw numbers at people.
But they still, like, for general, like, non-hero spotlight,
Yeah.
main character energy, they like devastated cities and stuff like that.
And it's crazy how many people have just come to realize that the B2 battle droid is just a really swole upper body B1. Because the head is just like straight down. It's got like these pectoral muscles that go up around its ears.
Yeah, they kind of try to design it so it can't get its head cut off easy with
Yeah, exactly. It's the anti-Jedi droid.
Those things are like super dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing of getting back into the novels. I haven't really read too much of the Clone Wars era, realizing how devastating droids are.
Yeah, the super battle droids were terrifying, and droidicas. If you saw a droidica roll up, that was like the end of it almost.
Well, and the BTs,
Mm-hmm.
and the interesting thing about them is they basically fight with like Revolutionary War tactics, like the line tactics of the battle, because they don't have good aim, so they just put a bunch of bodies and just start firing. But it made it a fun enemy.
Yeah.
That you could hash into little pieces without worrying about gore.
Exactly, and that was another thing, is it led to this time, and it was to the Sith's plan. Creating an army of droids was perfect to make the Jedi not feel like they're breaking their oath, but go to war.
I would say they make more sense than stormtroopers, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I've always liked the idea that the Sith actually planned for it to be a droid army, because they knew that a Jedi would have a lot more problems going and slaughtering other living beings. But they would have no problem unleashing that more aggressive side of themselves when they know it's just a droid. Now, of course, we're going to get to it later, but are these droids actually, is that okay to be killing them? Are they sentient? Yes, but no. Where does life kind of transfer between robotic to synthetic to, that's a weird
data on ones and zeros.
Yeah. Because, to a lot of people who are more
brains.
Right, because to a lot of people, that's what our head does. Like, to those who are maybe non-spiritual, non-religious, this up here is literally just a computer. We're just kind of squishy.
It's electrical signals. That's what nerves are. They're essentially just natural wires that are traveling with electrical signals.
So it's almost like it makes sense for humans to slowly upgrade ourselves until we become more in between that kind of thing. Although cyborgs in Star Wars are like super seen down upon, which is so crazy. People love droids. They'll spend money on droids and starfighters and fancy like hovercrafts, but don't put any of it in you unless you absolutely have to. But that's, arm replacements, that's probably one of the ones we're getting the closest with to actually matching the Star Wars universe, is the prosthetics that we have started to really work on. That's been the amazing thing with the 3D printers and all the engineers working on that stuff. Prosthetics have gone through the roof, and that's more or less just, it's a robot arm that just works off of the signals and things that it's given.
Yeah. Well, and again, like I said, the B2s are more economical. It's smarter choice to use as a fighting force.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about as much food.
Yeah,
They give
training
you
is
the
just a download
clothes.
program.
The only downside, and if you want to go really like if 1-to-1, save it or like what is the best design? The
Hmm.
B2 design is terrible. And I say it mainly because it's human.
Yeah.
You could make honestly, a really good design is can't think of his name, the droid from Andor,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
sidekick droid.
B2 emo or whatever.
Really good design. If you get
BMO.
some good, you
Yeah.
put a gun on that thing, it's so low to the ground. I mean, there's not much. You can't just
Yeah.
knock it over easy.
Well, that's why I've always liked Dr. Afra's crazy ass killer droids. 000 is a murderous protocol droid, just like C3PO, but he has put torture programs into himself. And then there is, I think it's BD or PTO1, and that he has treads and like a rocket launcher on his head.
Yeah, you don't really need to have the human figure.
Yeah.
Um, the only reason if you wanted to relate to humans, so like a protocol droid makes sense.
Yes.
Um, it's just the more of the kind of a relation with it.
Hmm.
So you see that, and emotionally, you automatically like, oh, this droid's here to help me.
Some people take it too far, like that lady in KOTOR 1 who was more than likely banging her droid because her husband died.
And we see some very interesting designs in Star Wars. Droids are one of my
Yeah.
favorite. I mean, I have these two
Yep.
droids, and I have other collectible droids. I found my old droid up there, and that's one of the weird bug-eyed looking droids.
Oh, was Forlom style?
Yeah, well, it's
Yeah, Forlom is a really cool one. Forlom again is another protocol droid who literally reprogrammed his own face.
Very old.
Oh yeah, the Imperial droid. Yeah, that's a Death Star droid.
It's not necessarily just Imperial. Other places use them.
Yes.
It looks a lot more evil.
But yeah, the Empire definitely removed a lot of the human aspect from their droids to give it that more, Empire vibe. You see one of those in Rebels. It has a fun conversation. It doesn't get along with Chopper whatsoever. And of course, Chopper. Just got to give this big shout out. Chopper is, I know, a lot of people's favorites. Not my personal favorite droid, but still, I will give him the highest kill count. I will let him have that. I mean,
he's a fun character.
Yes.
Comedy.
Like R2D2 and C3PO are amazing for.
Yeah,
they're like some of classic side characters that are, of course, they're based off of like Mercutio. They're based off of a lot of classic comedic side characters in like Shakespearean and other literature. Because you're going to be inspired by those things. George Lucas loved classical literature, and besides the spaghetti westerns and Kurosawa films.
Yeah. Well, and so we get some old style droids that aren't necessarily canon anymore with the HK. They're just basically older models.
Well, there is HKs. The Mandalorian made the HK model canon because that's what the magistrate is using, are HKs.
Well, the older, it still doesn't have the same body style, but
hopefully HK-47 is canon.
We get we get a ton with the Trade Federation.
Yes.
We get anywhere from like the troops, also all the vehicles or droids, which is pretty smart.
Let's see. Oh well, yeah, all the ships. What is it? Vulture droids are the ships.
The Vulture droids. They also have the hovering ones that look like a flying saucer. There's like a disc spinning around in the middle. And they're
the IG-227 Hellfire class droid tank. That thing was vicious. Yes, the one with the two giant wheels on it. I love that one. Was a very good design. I thought it was very small. It was fast.
Walking spider ones. Yeah,
yep.
That one's pretty smart. The wheels are pretty smart for motor transportation. Cause
it's
fast, and it's got a really slim design.
Good turn radius.
So it can just show up, fire its salvo, and then leave.
Yep.
It's really good anti-tank vehicle. And it's got the giant spider with the big laser, and it's got the smaller one. It's smaller for the big vehicles, but it's still big in a person.
It's still a really big one. Yeah. The tanks, they do have the tanks that are operated by other B1s, but that's pretty much the only one that's operated by B1s besides the big frigate class ships.
And then the buzz droids.
Ooh, that's always been a really fun one.
They seem really dumb, but apparently, according to the Thrawn books, which I reread, there's a Buzz Droid, I think, and the second one too.
The first one, I actually just read the comic. I just got the comic, the trade back for the first one. He found a
They're
first
bigger than they
class.
seem.
Yeah, Mark One Buzz droids were made with Duridium shells, so they are extremely tough.
Yeah, and oh yeah, I got to talk to you about the third book a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, if you guys want, put in the comments. Put Thrawn in the comments down below, and we'll have a Thrawn podcast next week.
Oh yeah, then they had the Kashyyyk battle, like the big tank one with the giant single tread.
Yeah, true. That one was really cool looking. I thought, yeah, you could tell it was its own droid, but like it just comes out of the water.
And there's the strategy droid. You see that
Yes,
one a lot, and
especially in the series, the Clone Wars series.
Clone Wars and in Rebels. There's one
Yeah.
in Rebels. Then you have my favorite, the commando droids.
Commando droid. My favorites are the IG-11 or the IG units. I just think they're so cool.
More competent probably than the commando droids are probably the electro staff.
Oh yeah, magma guards. Magma.
Maybe I don't know. Commando might be better because commandos they can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
They get a cool sword. And they've known to they infiltrate. There's one that dresses up like a clone, and none of the clones catch on for a while.
Yeah, I would definitely say assassin droids are definitely the preferred model, which is what a lot of commando droids are modeled after. But to me,
it's the similar design.
When you really get to see how dangerous IGs are in Mandalorian, with the ability to rotate their eyes around and just pivot.
Well, it's the funny thing because we never really get the idea of it because isn't it like an old car part? Or
yes,
like that?
It's like an old. I think it's like an old engine.
They use it as a drink dispenser in the bar.
Yeah.
and then they repurpose it as his head. So it's like the bartender slain IGs and made drink dispensers out of it. Yeah, the IG units are pretty cool. Which look at them, they look stupid. And the figures are so stiff. You wonder how good they are. And then we see Mandalorian. They did a good job of showing how devastating those things are.
His ability to just turn, having eyes all over its head, sensors and modules. Because that's the big thing. You work in engineering, I work in maintenance. So I'll say that's the number one issue that we have. If we could just get over sensors breaking all the damn time and needing replaced, we would have so many better appliances and things if those little fuses and those little circuits would just stop breaking all the time.
Well, and the good thing about the IG unit is even though it has a human design,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't fight like a human.
Right.
So it does the thing that the BT should be doing. It's able to rotate its head. It's able to shoot
any direction. Exactly. Yeah, its arms are fully rotatable.
It's you don't really need a normal human-shaped head at that point.
Yeah, and you just give it enough of a heavy casing, you can take a few bolts. That's the thing. IG-11 is just standing there, getting hit, doesn't care, just taking anything out. But droids are, and not only that, just the ability to slice into things. R2-D2, Chopper, those astromechs, and Slicer droids have proven that if you get a good enough droid into a ship, you don't have a ship anymore. They will literally take the ship from you.
They showed definitely that slicing can be viewed in a sexual manner.
It's one of my favorite stories. I think that is from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back. It's when R2-D2's with the door.
Well, they made a joke like that, I think, in Robot Chicken.
Yeah.
They made a joke like that.
The door was a little, you got to be gentle, but
we get all the R series.
Yes.
One of my favorites is, I believe it's the R6, I think. The one that the orange one there.
Yeah.
It's like the R5, but it has the single eye of the R2.
Yep.
All the R series are pretty cool.
Oh yeah, astromechs are a very in this world when most of your modes of transportation are going to be ships. That's the if you could have a mechanic in your car at all times that was just there to be a GPS, again, a mechanic, and just a ride along buddy. You could be like, did you see that?
Yeah, well, and something that I didn't realize, and I guess it makes sense because you don't really see too many of them in the Star Wars movies, is having them on your ship is a huge luxury.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. So that's why we don't see too many like outside of like militaries using them.
Yep.
They're just super expensive.
Yeah, they're programmed because I mean, when he starts to really open up and use all those gadgets, he's got cutters, he's got slicers, he's got fusers. I mean, welding equipment. He's packed with literally everything. Jetpacks. I mean,
Yeah, it somehow can like fix a ship without getting out of its little. Right, that part's always funny. It's like
yeah.
you get shot in the wing, and then he like shoots at a little buzzsaw and starts cutting the back of it like it's gonna change something.
And it did. That's the fantasy aspect where Star Wars says we're not going to get too deep into science. And then, we eventually get into like the BD model, which I think there are a lot of the reasons like that one just looked too cute. It was made for like a kid's toy, pretty much. A lot of people thought. It's not that I like BD1, but it is like first time I saw BD1, I was like, that is to be a kid's child. That's a kid's toy. That's why they made it a ball.
Yeah, and then they have the New Order version that is just the same thing but black and a flat head.
Yep, BB hate.
Yeah, those ones. Yeah, it doesn't really make too much sense why you would switch to that. Like going as like that's the problem. I love designs and stuff like that as an engineer degree.
Because it's like
doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah,
to go from that to that.
And it's supposed to also be like it's supposed to also be almost a astromech droid of some sort, but it's so tiny.
Fast. That's the only thing I can think of.
It's a little faster, and it's a smaller target.
Why would you need speed on an astromech?
Right.
You don't really need a speed that much. It's
they're very much built for purpose. See, that's why like a lot of people, and another personal favorite droid of mine is the Gonk droid. It's a huge block with legs because it's literally a power supply.
It's a walking battery.
Yeah, so it just needs to walk wherever you need it, sit there, and be plugged in.
It's like a walk. I'm pretty sure it's either just backup or like a UPS. Where it's like can convert power and stuff like that.
But Gonks are awesome.
Yeah, Gonks are just the dumbest design. They're like two totes. That's
all it is. And you can make them for like $40. You can make a Gonk.
Why didn't they put treads on the thing? I don't know. I get the coolness of the legs. It's awesome in Star Wars, and I get that what he was going with, like the all galaxy design. But why torture these things by not adding treads to them?
Well, but that's the thing. They are literally tortured in Return of the Jedi. So do they feel pain? There's the scene where they're like pressing those hot irons on the bottom of the Gonk droid before they go to the barge. So like. That's where we start to get into the idea. Yeah, that's when we start to get into the idea, though, and we can start getting into the depths. But it's like
we get a little bit more. Was it Mandalorian? Where he goes into the droid bar.
Yes. And R5's kind of a coward.
Astromechs are simply they're just walking toolboxes with brains.
Yep.
Essentially, they're just a bunch of tools.
But, as we, again, kind of talk about all this, I guess one of the other bigger things is, like, the Dark Droid series. It's an amazing comic. I highly recommend you all go read it. But we get a first appearance in that one of a place called, I believe it is the Second Chance of the High Revelation. Second Planet? But more or less, it is a droid operated like fiefdom or a kingdom or a planet. It's like an entire planet pretty much of nothing but sentient droids who are fully autonomous and fully like free.
Or what about the Bad Batch group that they run into? That I think it's Bad Batch.
Hold on, it is Bad Batch. They are a bounty hunters guild.
They have human slaves.
Let's see, the Droid Bounty Hunters Guild.
I love that design.
That they've completely flipped the script.
Such a like the other point of view type thing. It's like with the Trade Federation were ruled by droids, and they had the living slaves.
I know it's not Infra's next. The Droid Crush Pirates of Bestoon.
Is that from the comic that just came out?
I don't know, but there are a few of them. There are many sentient groups of droids that have definitely taken up to being their own creature. This one's really interesting though because there's some bad stuff going on, but it's literally an entire planet of these droids that have like they rebuild one another, they give sentience, they give freedom and stuff, and they're really bringing about this idea because they want things, they hope for things. So are droids now so advanced in the Star Wars galaxy that they're not actually just machines anymore? Because that's the big thing. That's why, like with Lando's droid,
I mean, they're still machines.
they are,
Even
but
when you go down to the bear, they're still a machine.
yeah,
Um, it's like, yeah, it would be like, what would you separate a human being from a droid, such as like C-3PO? What
mm-hmm.
separates you from C-3PO? Um, the only thing really is mostly just the organic side of things.
Yeah,
Um, like you could repair yourself without actually. I'm talking about just your body can on its own without like a droid has to actually fix it because it's metal wires.
yeah.
With organic material, it can self-repair.
But the
Um,
droid doesn't get sick. There are
well,
viruses, but it's different.
if it can get proven that they're fully autonomous thinking, I don't see why they can't have their own rights.
Yeah,
There's droids that are very debatable that they have true autonomous thinking.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, if they can make their own society, what's to stop from them having their own society?
Right. L337. That was Lando's droid. But yeah, because in another one of the tales from a certain point of view, we actually hear about Lando when she gets put in, and like the ship, the original brain of the ship is talking to the new hyperdrive party put in, which is also talking to her, and like this trio of entities that now live in the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, well, they give a body to her.
Yeah.
And it almost suggests that he has like kind of a love relationship with her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird thing. Is like can the droids and stars really feel true emotion? And it hints at it, but you know, really, I don't know if they fully can.
Well, it says like I mean it's that weird point where it's like if they want for things and they like desire things, if they say they desire anything, that's already like an emotion more than it is a thought process. But it's hard to tell because yeah, if you then give them a memory wipe, they go right back to brass tacks and they're like, what do you need?
Desire isn't necessarily like a full-on emotion that would make you kind of sentience, because that's just a natural survival instinct of any thing in existence that wants to exist.
But I don't feel like if you're a non-sentient droid, why would you have a survival instinct? You wouldn't care about getting cut down.
It could be something that can be programmed. You
True.
Want to, I mean, you don't want to be just scrapped because you would no longer be of use.
Same with organics, though. See, that's the weird part with me, because I think about it in the sense of that's the same with organics. We only do the things we do because we were taught and programmed by society to do it.
And that's not necessarily true. And we're getting into
that's like the super philosophy. Yeah, that's the super philosophy stuff. But
if you go back and you go to societies where there isn't a true society,
we will know when AI has achieved actual sentience when they can gossip. Yeah, that'll be a good, when they literally just talk shit for the sake of talking shit. There's no point to it.
Yeah. And again, when we have an actual AI, again,
yeah,
this is the slang term for AI, and that's people don't understand. There's no true intelligence to our current AI, and Star Wars is different.
Yeah. Star Wars AI does it like I think that's the thing that makes it more of like I don't know though, because the Star Wars AI, our AI has to have a programmed algorithm to go through, so it's like in a little box. A Star Wars AI literally can search throughout the entire database of everything at any second and has the ability to like learn, and it has nothing holding it back, which is what makes them so good, but then they gain a little wonkiness.
It'll still have the algorithm, but it's more an advanced algorithm.
Yeah.
Where it can take in data on its own and come up with its own problems without being given them.
Exactly.
It can develop and go through and basically reason with information, and and some of these advanced models where it takes in its outside, where our current AI can't.
Yeah.
Um, Current AI literally, like I said, it literally is just
Following commands,
well,
like
it's more
chains and
yeah, it's really close to how Google works when you go to when it suggests things for you. Put in
mm-hmm.
the prompt and it gives the best, it feeds through popular and numbers and it gives you what you want to hear
Yeah.
based on the prompt. Without the prompt, without that information, it won't do anything on its own. Whereas these droids, a lot of them can function, they can reason to a sense, which is one of the arguments to full sentience is the
Yeah.
ability to reason on your own. Um,
I would say the only droid that, of course, I will give like, oh my god, this thing is sentient to a bad degree. It was covered mostly in the comics, from Dr. Aphra now into Dark Droids. It is the Spark Eternal. Comes from the Ascendancy cult. The Ascendancy were a dark side cult that wanted to be like Sith, but none of them had force powers, so they created tech that would give them near force-like powers. And their ultimate creation was this thing called the Spark Eternal, which is a AI that can use the force. A little OP, little crazy. Don't know how they did it. No one has any idea.
which breaks the laws of Star Wars.
Yeah, it's like they just stuffed midichlorians into a droid somehow.
So is that considered canon?
Yeah, 100%. Darth Vader's fought it. Like it's 100% canon. The Spark Eternal is a sentient AI force using
Yeah,
being.
that's the problem when you get a bunch of these comics because you you break literally like the whole point of Grievous. He can't use the Force because he doesn't have enough organic to generate the midichlorians.
Well, I also thought it was because they also say he just doesn't have the force in him. Like he just never had it.
I mean,
But you do lose. You do actually lose some potential, though. Like Anakin lost a portion of his power from being so severely burnt and losing so many limbs.
the whole idea is you have to have the whole midichlorian thing to kind of
Yeah.
access the Force.
So I guess it's kind of like, I mean, Palpatine.
Because he's just a brain and a heart and a couple of lungs.
See, that's the thing though with like Palpatine's return and stuff. Then, because they can obviously pump midichlorians or somehow get midichlorians back into another body. Because he transferred into a husk that somehow had just as many midichlorians, if not more, than he did beforehand. So it's like obviously they've now somehow learned a way to maneuver or put midichlorians through. They're like red blood cells.
It's easier. It's easier in the living body.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But that's also going into like again, and I want to attack Disney about it. A stupid idea, but they didn't come up with cloning Sidious.
Yeah.
That's been something Lucas did a long time ago.
Well, not Lucas. He didn't write any of those books.
No, he did write the idea of cloning Sidious. Like that's
okay.
The extended universe got the idea from. But yeah, that wasn't new. It's dumb in general.
Yeah.
And especially unless you upload your memories, it's like you're not the same being that's there. So
yeah. But then, like if you upload your memories into another body, we're right back to my philosophical question of: Are you just a fleshy mech? So is it not just the sparks and the little wiring up in here that makes us who we are? So that's really if a droid just has the same amount. I'm willing to say I'm 100% droid rights activist.
well, like I said, I don't see a problem with it. And again,
because in the Star Wars universe, they're so different. Yeah, because like you said, they're so different.
It literally breaks the laws of
everything.
There's a lot of physics that it breaks.
Yeah,
there's things that literally cannot happen. But if we pretend that we are in the Star Wars universe, yeah, one could have a very strong argument that a lot of droids are considered sentient.
Yeah.
Definitely have more argument than what we have for robots. That's for sure.
Right. I like it when people are always like, I feel bad for the Boston Dynamic dog. He just gets kicked around all the time. Yeah, because they're just testing his ability to stand up. I promise you, he can't feel pain.
Yeah. It's like kicking your car.
Yeah, like it costs a lot of money and you probably shouldn't do it because it might dent it, but it's not going to... The car doesn't know you did it.
I mean, they get computers with stronger brains than Boston Dynamics, and I bet you if I hit that computer, it won't feel anything.
Right, yeah. You could literally snap like a CPU in half and it doesn't know it happened. It's not like that. That is one of the main things that separates it, and that's why boys loved Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, because it was so amazing how like C-3PO's head just gets lobbed off. He gets put on a B1 battle droid. He's not like somehow the droid's body is working completely separately from the processing unit in C-3PO's head.
Yeah, that's also when you start breaking things for the sake of comedy.
Right.
It's like we have these clear laws in place, but let's ignore them for this funny moment of having C-3PO like die Jedi. I mean, what am I saying?
Yeah. The programmings are fighting one another.
I mean, it could argue that but I don't see why the BT would have programming in its body, but.
Maybe the programming's on that backpack though, because I mean, a lot of times when a Jedi would cut its head off, they kind of like will like wiggle a little and then die.
Well, most of the backpacks, the communications
Right.
as an antenna for the droid control.
They got 2 operating centers, one here and one back there. That one's just really bad.
Well, and the weird thing too is like once the droid control is gone, the B2s don't function.
Yeah, they are like
That's
hive
also a
mind.
weird thing. Why when I don't know. It's just that's a weird thing.
Well, I feel like in Episode 1, it was because they never expected anyone to actually break through the shield and just drive into the ship and shoot it from the inside. But it is a horrible design for hive mentality, because at least with like Geonosians and like insectoids that have hive mentality, they will reassert a new leader. A droid doesn't do that. They just shut down. They don't have a supply command. They don't have commands. They don't have an on switch.
They'll put themselves in front of the danger, and the droids don't ever do that.
Oh no,
But
yeah.
it's also you could blame the commanding of the
Right.
I forget what those guys are called. They're pretty dumb. They gotta be. It's so weird. They gotta be smart for all the stuff they were able to accomplish.
Yeah.
It's just the movies give such a bad rap for the sake of comedy, for the sake of heroes, that it makes them so incompetent. But you gotta think of like what they've accomplished to get there. Like they're not incompetent. They've taken over planets.
Yeah.
They have their own federation. With made a ton
Nemoidians. Yes, the Trade Federation of Nemoidia.
They've literally built a robotic army.
Canto Nemoidia.
They've got the money, so they're not incompetent. But it's like you get in the movies, it's like, oh yeah, they're incompetent.
Yeah.
They're just goofballs.
And they suffer from the same kind of sad, like stormtroopers will never hit Luke and Leia because they can't. Darth Vader can't accidentally just have like sliced Luke Skywalker in half the first time they fought with lightsabers. Obi-Wan Kenobi has to get away from Vader in the Kenobi series.
The novels. Well, that's funny too, because you get in the novels are so devastating. Like for instance, in the later Thrawn novels, you get he gets Death Troopers,
Mm-hmm.
and you get Andor when he just casual side shot and kills one instantly.
Yeah.
But in the books and stuff, they're just so devastating. Like
Yeah, exactly.
they're just like they're literally like.
Well, it's like TIE Fighters.
OP.
TIE Fighters in like the books and the game, they are terrifying. A TIE Fighter pilot is like top cream of the crop Imperial fighter.
Yeah. Well, that's also the thing is like, and we see that in some of these books, especially in
Rogue Squadrons and Thrawn.
And Thrawn in the book, because you get to see a lot of warfare.
With good leadership, the Empire is devastating.
Well, anytime the TIEs are in play, they're so devastating that like ships can't shoot them in time, and they just start shooting and blowing up their ships. They don't have a counter.
Yep. And that's the reason they exist. Like, and that's kind of again another thing that I'll give the Trade Federation. Having the ability to just like shoot droids at a problem and just overwhelm your enemy immediately was a really good idea. The buzz droids, vulture droids, and they don't have to breathe in space. It doesn't matter. You can literally like if a vacuum in space opens up on your ship, it's not gonna just immediately kill everything inside.
To be honest, part of their dumb decisions were because of Sidious, because he scammed him because he was Darth Maul. And he scammed them into thinking they're going to help him.
Yep.
And convinced them to make dumb decisions. And then, of course...
Because he didn't want either side to get too powerful, because then he would have a harder time taking over.
They were intended to lose eventually.
Right.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. But yeah, it's like... So you say droids... So we go to the argument. Let's do a counter argument. So we say droids are sentient. That count for all droids. What about the Gong droid? What about the giant, the the one we just talked about earlier, the Hellfire, the one with the giant wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one gets sentient? It's
And that's the thing is you'd have to talk to it.
Missiles.
Right, but that's the other issue is that like I don't speak binary sadly, which is apparently a language.
Yeah.
That's the other fun Star Wars thing is the beeps and boops that each droid makes that are not the exact same beeps and boops somehow are correlated through that into almost like a Morse kind of binary code language. I'd love to learn more about it, but I don't know very much about the Star Wars binary language because
That's the only people that may be close to knowing are maybe those monks that put their brain in
Oh yeah.
fighter.
Yep. Things. Yeah, there are the droids. I've always said the main thing that it would take away from their sentience is it takes one wipe. Get them to a shop, put them in an oil bath, wipe their memory, and they come right out like, "Oh, hello, how can I serve you today?"
I mean, give me enough electricity, I could probably wipe your memory.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I've seen it. You ever been to a mental hospital? Some of those people are wiped. Yeah. They are a shell of what they used to be. And that's what happens. Like that's why R2D2 didn't. He develops more of an attitude because he's processing so much. They almost say like he's processing too much. That's why he has an attitude because he has too much information in his head. He's an astromech. He's not supposed to have tactical. He's not supposed to have tactics from Anakin Skywalker through Luke.
Well, that's the scary thing too. Is like the amount he could just take over. Part of a Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
Too. And the amount of power he could just pull out of his droid appendage.
With he's not even meant for that. He's just been kept around so long, he's gotten good at it.
And the crazy modifications he's gotten, like jetpacks, he's gotten a taser.
Yeah. I mean,
That's the craziest one.
He's obviously learned. Oh yeah. There's Chopper, who literally will just grab a blaster and shoot you.
You know what's with the fairy droid's one of the craziest modifications, but it literally gives it arms and legs.
Yeah, they just packed it on there just so he could just gondola his way through the ferry.
Which makes no sense why you need that. One of my favorite droids to design, I think was Andor. Where they had the stair droid.
Oh yeah.
Literally, it was Andor because it was the bus coming, the air little bus thing they have.
Mm-hmm.
It lands, and it's literally a droid. Its whole purpose is to be stairs for when it lands and it pulls up. People can step down.
Yeah, it's almost to the point like Star Wars is taking it a little bit too far. Like everything that is not like if it has any need to move from its spot at all, it's probably a droid.
Or the door droid.
Yeah.
Palace, that's
a droid. It's an eyeball that comes out. Who are you?
They consider the training droids, the Jedi training droids that shoot.
Oh yeah, the little what are they called? Remotes.
A droid.
Yeah.
And
obviously the Jedi don't care about slicing them in half constantly.
It's any automated machine.
Yeah.
Considered a droid. Some people do give them emotions, and you see that with the personal like R2 and stuff like that. And then there's ones that show they break their own programming. You get there.
Yeah. There's Mr. Bones.
Yeah, he's the red BT that like goes nuts.
Broke his programming and then uploaded more programming into himself to be an even crazier assassin.
Yeah, and there's a couple of them.
Yeah, and again from that new world, I'm excited to see what's going to happen with Dark Droids. To see where this world is going to go. If we have an entire planet of free droids that are very much so like trying to bring more droids under the cusp of this freedom, I'd be very excited to see where that's going to go. It might go to complete obliteration because of what's happening in Dark Droids with the Spark Eternal. It's more or less, think of it like the zombie plague in Star Wars, but droids.
So what?
Which is the main problem, because that is a major issue with that. Is if you can take them over, you win. If you can like program, but if you can hack into like C-3PO while he's on a rebellion ship.
Well, you don't even have to hack into him. You just give him upload a virus.
Yeah.
And anytime they connect to the same network, like the ship or whatever, and it spreads, and it literally just overwrites the program and can kill whoever's around. That's all they had to do.
Yeah.
Or they could do anything like to make them just explode or just break.
Just open up, just vent to space and stuff.
That's honestly the easiest thing you gotta do is just like a crazy virus that spreads really fast and
Yeah.
like overrides programming.
That's the Spark Eternal. That is what that is the premise of Dark Droids.
But it's that technically wouldn't work because not all droids have the same processing, but
Yeah. Star Wars.
sci-fi, so it works. Um, yeah. So my question for you is, from the humble, one of my favorite droids, the pit droid, to the gonk droid, to the vulture droid, to whatever. What is your favorite droid of all time?
Alrighty. So we're taking in absolutely, positively every single.
Not counting character, like unique droids.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Just a droid type. Right.
Droid model be the better. Yeah.
Oh man.
Don't forget
I gotta say HK. I gotta say HK. I like it. I know even if HK-47 is not fully canon, the HK model, they are protocol and militaristic assassin. Like that's perfect. They can translate, they can hold decorum, but they can also shoot really good and like use melee weapons. They look awesome.
The Empire's interrogation droid.
That's cool, but man, I don't need a giant ball floating around. And I think,
Mini Death Star.
yeah, it just has a little syringe that it. Like, how many times do you think this guy's accidentally rounded a corner and not known that thing was there and just walked into a syringe?
Well, the thing's so large, it's just a hazard in general.
Right.
Empire definitely does not have an OSHA, that's for sure.
Oh God, no! There's no guardrails anywhere. I definitely got to say an HK. What about you?
It'd be definitely difficult for me.
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of the Commando droid. That's one of the droids I did when I did the Star Wars role playing. I did a modified Commando droid.
Are you excited for Outlaws?
Yeah.
Yep, because
I'm excited to see it. It's just a cool droid. It's literally just an updated HK, if you want to argue.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's cheaper.
Yeah, probably.
Federation. It's a more expendable HK.
Yeah, you could buy probably like
probably the more better. So I'd still put them in line. I'd still put it like in line with HK, IG, and the Commando.
Yeah, I could definitely see the Commando droid. You could get like 3 Commando droids for the price of like 1 HK.
Well, yeah, it's crazy how cool they are. You don't get to see them much, but I think that's what makes them more...
Well, like in Battlefront, I love playing a Commando droid in Battlefront 2. The smoke screen, the heat vision, like targeting sensors for organics. Because if you're a droid army, all you need to be able to do is sense organic matter and shoot it. Because you're not going to hit anyone on your team.
They're a great counter for Hero Jedis.
Oh, yeah. And because they have the melee option. And that's a big thing. Like with IGs, the IG units are known, like IG-88 loves his big butcher knife he has. And then the Commando droids go out with a literal vibro, like, saber.
It's like a giant machete.
Yeah, it's just a giant vibro machete. It's awesome, though.
Yeah, droids are cool.
Very.
They are a key aspect of Star Wars, definitely.
And I feel like they've really influenced yes, and they've influenced a lot of other cultural stuff. Like the side character was always a big component in older media and older film, but really R2D2 and C3PO like birthed the smirky talkback kind of droid mentality, I think.
Yeah.
And especially their relationship, because most droids and other things, like with Flash Gordon or with Lost in Space, they were very just subservient, very just, yes, master, how can I help you? While these two were like slapping each other and like, no, brains, you can't say that.
Well, R2 was a pretty unique design for its time.
Yeah.
When, like I said, a lot of droids...
Rest in peace to Kenny Baker.
People-shaped, where R2 was not.
And yet he had a human inside of him.
Yeah. That had to be terrible.
Oh, it had to be so hot. Or like with Anthony Daniels, that's what he says. Trying to be in the Tunisian desert doing the Return of the Jedi and like A New Hope stuff, covered in all of that.
Yeah. It was funny, it's like either R2 had him in, but where the scenes where they had him moving down hallways, he just had him on a string.
Yeah.
Pulling him. It's a really neat way of like doing scenes with the because you don't have to like maneuver as much.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense, and it sells toys easier.
Yeah.
Which they didn't originally intend on, but then went full force on.
Man, now that I got that Padme Amidala Pepsi thing, there's one more I need. Everyone saw it back in the day, the R2D2 Pepsi canister. Like they would put all the drinks inside of it. That's what I need one of those. That would be so awesome.
Did they have they had a trash can that was
Mm-hmm.
that you could
Yeah.
get as well. One of my favorite ones is the I think it was like the you get them back, and I don't remember where I think it was Japan during episode 1, where they had
Okay.
the drinks with all the BT droids. I think I showed you.
Oh yes,
Florida.
yes. It was the carrier would pull out, and they had like a commander droid, and then all the other droids for the rest of the.
Have that.
Yeah, that would be so awesome. Oh man, that's another thing I wish they would do. Just like a little side tangent, real quick. I don't know what happened to promotional stuff. Like with BB-8, why were there not like, hey guys, here's a soccer ball that looks like BB-8. Here's
people harp on episode. I think that's the reason why people.
Here's a BB-8 grill.
Because it promoted episode 1 the best
Mm-hmm.
promotion.
Oh,
ever,
dude.
And people got disappointed. I mean, no movie since then with Star Wars or Star Wars content has been promoted that way before.
Yep.
Well, again, I mean, you literally, like I said, even the cool stuff, like it was just
Burger King toys, it was like this thing. It was back. I feel like it was also a time period thing though, because when the OG Pokemon movie came out, and it was well received, they did like all the gold cards at Burger King and like all that stuff, and then it just fades into the ether like nothing ever happened.
Well, and like even going to like a gas station, like you said, they had the drink dispenser, because they had those during the episode 1. They had a lot of those.
Oh yeah, and every single Pepsi machine had a pod racer on it.
And all the labels had unique Star Wars characters.
Yep.
Your shampoos, like everything had Star Wars. It was, I mean, they've done it before, but not to that scale.
Well, but it's what's even crazier to me is they know about us nutto collectors. Like they know people like me exist who would want those objects.
I remember seeing some of those people that did, and they had all the Dorito bags, cans.
Yep.
Yeah, Star Wars people are nuts. That's for sure.
100%. And I think that's one of the best reasons why the droids are such an amazing counterpart, because you can really. It's a faceless character, even though it looks humanoid in some cases. It doesn't have that pure soul, that pure identity. Like we know, that's C-3PO, he acts like this. But if we see that silver protocol droid in like episode 1 or many of the other episodes, you're like, oh yeah, I bet it acts almost just like he does because it's just another C-3PO, but it's silver, so it's different enough. Like they have their own identity, but they're not they're not so important that when you see them on screen, they would steal it.
Well, it's so iconic to the Star Wars brand that even if you see something similar, or you just see a trash can, you're like, oh, it's R2D2, or mailbox, or you see other sci-fis and they have something similar, you automatically think of Star Wars. It's so iconic as like the Stormtrooper, as Darth Vader, as the lightsaber. Like when you think Star Wars, there's certain things that immediately come to somebody's mind that doesn't even care much about Star Wars.
Yeah.
You like like your normal person that isn't a huge fan. They've seen some of the movies, but they know who R2D2 is.
Yeah.
So like,
and that's the thing. Other places, like I said, Flash Gordon. There's so many older shows that did droids. Star Trek has droids. Like a lot of people have droids, and yet if you talk about droids, I'm gonna say almost 86 plus people are definitely gonna think about Star Wars.
And a lot of people will know who he is without even probably seeing the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And R2D2 is
phenomena.
Well,
he was like the OG Grogu.
I am curious to see, like, just what's the most popular like known character of all time. And R2D2's got to be in the top 3 for sure. Mm-hmm. If not,
because anyone can relate to it. Just this
icon.
He's just a little droid. You look at him and you're like, oh, he looks kind of cute in his weird little, like, I don't know. I know he doesn't look sentient, but I like him. He looks huggable.
They know the beeps.
Yep.
They know.
Oh, dude, like that. Was it? Wow! Like the scream he does when he's like, I love that. He's very classic.
And the old Star Wars dad joke, what's the Star Wars character that had the most foul language?
Oh yeah,
R2D2 because they had to censor him through the whole movie.
had to beep out every line. And that's crazy when you start to like really apparently learn what Chopper is 100%. He's actually saying mean things. Like Chopper is actually cussing at you.
Yeah, he is definitely
And you can tell, like, it's weird. Sometimes you look at certain, like, the High Republic droid that a lot of people have recently seen from the Jedi Survivor game looks way more advanced than current protocol, etiquette droid, and stuff like that. It is a weird thing. I will say, like, the older you get back into Old Republic, there is a... The Old Republic itself does really good with this. And having all of their droids very, like, flat disc, very boxy body. T3M4 is a good one to think of from KOTOR 1. And HK-47, he looks like, kind of menacing, but he's still very, like, a clanky humanoid droid. But then High Republic was, like, because, again, Renaissance, so everything's more flowy and elegant and covered and stuff. But the droids do better than the ships and other tech. The droids actually seem to get worse as you go back in time, whereas everything else has apparently been in the galaxy for so long, like interstellar travel and ships, and they were already, like, you can't apparently build anything better besides just bigger guns and, like, faster engines. But droids, they did, I think, a really good job.
And you get that too at the Trade Federation. When you get into those droids, you could tell that they're all made from the same people. They get consistent design, and even then, some of those designs, because you get that as close as you get to the Civil War era.
Yeah.
And that's when you start getting the kind of piecemeal droids, where they're not they're dirty, and you could tell they've been fixed a bunch. Like it's like C-3PO with his leg, and you kind of get that as things progress. They're not as shiny and clean.
As C-3PO once said,
the High Republic would probably be.
Yeah, I always love that when C-3PO has to reintroduce himself to Poe Dameron. Hello, Poe. You might not recognize me with the red arm.
That's kind of why I kind of dislike the BB design.
Yeah,
because it's like they tried to go futuristic with it.
Yeah,
but they want to try to keep the Star Wars, but they went too far, and it's no longer that. Because when we get into the era that we know and love for Star Wars, a lot of it is because it's a time where things are being kind of patched up. It's kind of a regressive time, and things aren't as shiny and new. Whereas, like I said, the Trade Federation, a lot of their stuff looks like they were assembled quickly. They're skinny. They're assembled the least so they can mass produce them.
Well, and here's my other issue with BB. Like, if he's on a really muddy planet or a snowy planet, how does he not build up gunk in between him and his head?
How does he function in general?
I just look at it, I'm like, but like if he's rolling through a swamp, it's just gonna get everywhere.
So, and we get that in the movie when he's on the when they get him on the ship.
Yeah.
Like, that's a terrible design to be a ball on a vehicle.
He has to put the harpoons in the wall so he'll stop flying everywhere.
You get some massive turbulence.
Right. All of a sudden you just have a shrapnel machine flying through your ship.
You have him up there in the cockpit with you.
Bing, 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 bing.
And it flies off and bonks somebody in the head.
Breaks a window.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting design. I will say one of the newer design droids from the Obi-Wan series, the Leia's droid was.
Yeah, and which makes perfect sense for like a child's little like friend droid, like a little assistant, which is pretty much there just to remind it, hey, go home and be here at this time.
It almost reminds me of speaking of High Republic, the rich guy. I can't think of his name, but
Axel Greylark.
His is a motion droid that.
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah.
It's really similar. Where it's just like a child emotion droid.
Yep, exactly. Bright lights, lots of color, and it's just there to kind of soothe and relax and play music and just be a kid's.
Until he gets hacked and then
tries to kill everybody. Exactly. I really did like that one. It's I got one with the Obi-Wan series figure I got, but it's so fucking tiny. The legs are so small. Trying to get it to stand up is nigh impossible.
I thought about buying one because they had the toy ones.
Yeah, I might. Well, and that's another one. Another one I actually really like too is the Imperial or like the Inquisitorial probe droid. like the Viper probe droid. Those are cool, but like the little one that can like sit on like the seventh sister's shoulder. She would have that little one right here all the time, or like Eden Verso does. So like my favorite is HK. The most useful is definitely like a little slicer astromech kind of droid. Especially the floating ones, because then they literally can just go anywhere.
Well, one of my favorite designs is, I put it up there, is a really simple, you don't see it very often, is the seeker droids that Darth Maul has in episode 1.
Yes, yeah.
Those ball ones, those are so cool.
Which kind of almost have the same design as the one in episode 2 with the ones that deliver the slugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good design, especially for like a recon droid.
Yeah, there's so many cool designs, and we get to later recon with the Empire with this giant floating thing.
Yep, the Viper recon droid.
Well, it just makes really loud noises, and it's massive. It doesn't look very big, but if you look compared to people, it's huge. He's got all those little arms.
It's not there to be sneaky. It's just there to like look at everything really fast.
Well, it definitely reminds you of something they would use on like what NASA would come up with to put on. A planet, because it collects things and gathers information.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it'd be best to send on Hoth. I think rebels are going to be there.
Well, it's like even C-3PO talks about my circuits are freezing. Like, yeah, extreme weather is not good on electronics. So,
the similar killer designs. We get the also the Empire has the I can't think of his name. It's the one Andor gets as a friend later. They use
K2SO. Yes.
Yeah, the K2s.
The Imperial security droids.
Those are pretty cool.
Huge, super strong.
That similar field, and you get to see how cool it fights in Rogue One.
Yeah.
And that
Fallen Order.
The kind of assassin droid style.
Yeah.
Yeah. Droids. Yeah.
Droids are a huge part of Star Wars. Amazing side characters. They developed so much awesome scenery and fan base behind them. They've built up an amazing sense of camaraderie. And again, for being side characters, they're loved. They don't steal any of the scenes, but they enhance all of them. And we love them for it. Make sure to put down below, guys, what your favorite droids are. If you want the next episode to be about Thrawn, you better throw that in there too. Always put in the comments if you have an idea for next episode.
It's a good time since we're getting the live action Thrawn.
Hey, we have a week and a few more days, guys. So you know what? I think, next week we'll definitely probably throw around a little Mithra Nudu. It's a very long name. Chiss names are challenging.
If you read the prequel books, you find out how to technically pronounce his name and where it comes from, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have an amazing rest of your day, and as always, may the Force serve you well.
And may the Force